All right, today we're going to do another relic reveal unboxing. It's a duplicate. Actually, it's like a quadruplet. I think I have 4 or 5 of the same saint in my collection. Well, I don't like to call it a collection. I like to call it a catalog. All right, so let's get this unboxed and we'll do it in fast motion. Now, a genuine relic will come with a certificate of authenticity by the postulator general of whatever cause or whatever religious order they had procured the relic from and placed it into the teca. And unfortunately, most of them are orphans. And there's no there's just like no other way to say, but these are orphans. And there we go. Now these are not fakes. I'm going to also check the wax seal. There should be a wax seal on the back. So if you have a relic, check the wax seal. It opens up. You can just twist it and pull it off. And there should be a wax seal with little strings that are tied. If the strings are not tied, it isn't actually tampered with. It stops it from being tampered with. There's wicked people out there, boys and girls. They'll do wicked things. All right, so we have an authentic relic. What order is this? You can see words, but it's hard to make out. Now imagine trying to find a stamp this little. This is a very, very tiny stamp, so it's very hard to make out the details sometimes. This is a first-class relic. It's of the body of the saint. So a second-class relic would be something they touched, or a book, or a piece of clothing. You get my drift? And a third-class relic is when you venerate the first-class relic, and you place, like, say, a prayer card, and touch the first-class relic, you'll get a third-class relic. And this is either an ex ossibus, which would be a bone, an ex carne, which would be part of the flesh, or an ex corpore, which would be, again, a part of the flesh. I think carne is the skin, and corpore it's either or. I'm not sure which one is which, but one is of the skin, one is a part of the body. It could be a part of the intestine. You follow what I'm saying? So let's get in there close. You can see that right there. That is the holy relic. But are these miraculous? Now, I don't want any of you to get the wrong idea that I'm some holy person and some really religious person. I'm trying to find God. I'm trying to hope and pray there's God. And so while I put this in the reliquary, let's talk about it. Let's talk about faith. And what is faith in religion? Well, it's my interpretation of what I believe faith should be. It should be you should believe in something without proof. You should believe in something without any kind of tangible proof. Now, how can we do that, boys and girls? I don't know. But I can tell you an example in my life where there was no proof, but I had 100% faith and something amazing happened. So when I was a kid, I was crazy. Absolutely crazy about dinosaurs and fossils. And I always wanted to be an archaeologist. And I lived in New York City in Queens, which is a very heavily populated area, mostly cemented over, not very much wildlife. And I said to my dad one day, because I was reading my dinosaur books, I said, I'm going to go in the yard and find a fossil. And my father laughed. He laughed really hard and he said, you're crazy. He said, and he was wearing a baseball cap, and he said, I'll eat my hat if you find a fossil, he said. And I said, you watch and see. And the next thing that happened baffled both of us. I was 100% sure that I was going to find a fossil. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind. I assumed that I just take the shovel and I dig in the backyard. We were probably one of the only yards with grass and dirt. Everyone else was cement. And I just felt 100% certain that I was going to find a fossil. And my dad was just shaking his head in like disbelief, like, oh, this kid's wasting our time. And so I went with the shovel and I just pointed at a spot. My dog went over to it. I had a German Shepherd at the time. He loved to dig in the yard. And I said, Petty, dig. And he started digging in some spot. And he got about maybe a couple of inches down, and I pushed him aside gently. And I said, I'm going to do this, Petty. And so I started digging, not very far down into the earth, probably about, I was a kid, maybe a foot. Maybe slightly more. I don't know. It wasn't much. And there was this big chunk of gray rock. And I flipped it over, and there were trilobites all impressed in it. What's a trilobite? It's a little sea creature that was around hundreds of millions of years ago. And I started jumping up and down for joy. And I screamed, Daddy, I found a fossil. And he was like, oh boy. She probably just found like pyrite or something in the yard. And I was like, Daddy, look, Daddy, look. And he stopped in his tracks, and his jaw hit the ground. And I said, Daddy, you have to eat your hat now. He didn't eat his hat, let's just say. And so the next day I was the star pupil because in science, Mr. Brandstatter, oh, he was great. At PS60, Mr. Brandstatter, he was Mr. Science. He made science exciting. He would teach us about electricity and he would say, who washed their hair today? And who washed their hair today? And everyone would raise their hands because you didn't want to admit if you didn't wash your hair. And he would pick a kid and he would rub a balloon on their hair and then stick it to the wall and teach us about static electricity. So I was the star pupil the next day at school when we passed around my fossil that I believed 110% that I was going to find. So the chances of finding that in a Woodhaven, Queens, New York backyard, okay, New York City, we're talking maximum density, lots of people and cement, was like probably me hitting the Powerball. Okay? I don't think there's any other example of trilobites found in Woodhaven, New York. They may be. Maybe I just haven't Googled it enough. But yeah, okay, so I had 100% faith. But why can't I have that same type of faith when it comes to God? And that's why, I like to learn about God through the saints. I like to read about the saints and what they grappled with. And so one of my favorite saints is Saint Therese, and I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong because I'm not French. Saint Therese of Lisieux, whatever, okay, of the infant Jesus. And I read parts of, I didn't read the whole thing, but I read parts of the story of his soul. And apparently she was in agony. She had tuberculosis and she was in agony and she felt that God wasn't there. She felt like this darkness in her heart. She felt all alone, but she still had faith. And she still, even though she grappled with it, she still had faith and prayed to him and honored him and loved him. And I have trouble myself, believing and praying. And I pray. Trust me, I pray. But I don't go to church. And that's not a good thing, right? But I pray myself. And I have little conversations with God. And you might think I talk to myself and I might have schizophrenia. But I beg him and I plead with him to prove that he's real. And so how can we figure out if God's real? Well, it's like my dinosaur, right? I had 100% certain faith that I was going to find that fossil that day. I was certain of it 100%. Now, if we can be like that in every single day of our lives with God like the fossil, God like the fossil I was going to find, and I was certain of it, so much so that my dad was going to eat his hat. Why can't I easily do that? I'd like to know. Can you tell me in the comments below? So what can St. Elizabeth Ann Seton teach us? Well, she was a New Yorker. She wasn't digging for fossils. She was digging for God. And I think she found him. And there's something scurrying in the bushes. I think it's a little bunny rabbit. Okay, you hear him? Okay. And so, so she was around in the 1700s. Her husband, she loved her husband. Her husband got very ill, and they went to Italy to try to cure him. And she had 5 children. Her husband ended up dying. She was an Episcopalian. She found kindness through the Catholics in Italy when she traveled to Italy to get her husband better. And it turns out this poor woman was a widow. And then she lost 3 of her children. This woman went through hell. But she still had faith in God. And she created the first parochial schools in America. And she helped people. And she became the first American saint and female saint in America as well. So I'm going to look for fossils. But the thing is that I need to know 100% that those fossils are there. But why was I able to, 100% certainly say I'm going to find a fossil the day that I found the fossil? I don't understand. But why can't I do this with God? I'd like you to help me out in the comments below. And by the way, if you can, pray for me. I'm very sick. I have open ulcers and wounds all over my legs. And every time they get better, they get worse again. I have a problem with my veins, and they cause ulcers on my legs. And blood leaks out of my veins into my legs and makes them swell up, and then they turn into leg ulcers. And I keep going to the hospital every week, and it just doesn't get better. It gets better, and then it comes back. So can you pray for me? Because I have faith in you that you could pray for me. And maybe your prayers can help bring forth a miracle that I can find faith and get well again. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next unboxing. And hopefully we can all help each other find some faith.